my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt-Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place for women to come together to share their childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from women all over the world. Today's episode is sponsored by Aeroflow breast pumps. Aeroflow has helped thousands of new and expecting moms find the perfect pump for their lifestyle. They offer all major pump brands, including Medela, Spectra, Motif, Lancino, Amita, and more. And the best part is they take care of everything, including getting all the required paperwork, dealing with your insurance company, and explaining your options in order to get your free pump shipped straight to your door. And an extra bonus is you may also qualify for free maternity compression garments like compression socks, maternity support bands, and a postpartum recovery garment, plus breast pump resupply products ranging from new bottles, tubing, and flanges to duct valves and pump membranes. All you have to do is go to Aeroflow Breast Pump's website and fill out their free and easy qualify through insurance form. Be sure to go to aeroflowbreastpumps.com/birthhour so they'll know that I sent you. At the end of this episode, we'll have more information about Aeroflow breast pumps. Today's birth story guest is Kaitlin, and she's going to be sharing her fourth baby's birth story. She had 3 home water births, and they were all kind of long, slower labors, and they were actually all 3 sons, and then she had a surprise baby girl that had a very different birth story. So let's turn it over to Kaitlin and her story. Hi, Kaitlin. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Hi, Bryn. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share my daughter's birth story today.
Can you start by telling listeners a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah. So I'm Kaitlin, and my husband Aaron and I are both 28. We live in really rural Minnesota. We have 4 kids. Graham is 5, Daxton is 3, Ava is 2, and Macy is 7 months. So it's a little chaotic, but we have so much fun. I really love being a mom and just really embrace that. I also do run a little herbal infused skincare shop whenever I have free time between the kids. And we homeschool. Yeah, we're just really full over here, but it's a lot of fun. So.
All right. Well, I know you want to focus mostly on your most recent birth with your daughter. So let's start with that pregnancy and how that went for you.
Yeah, the pregnancy was pretty much the same as my previous 3. I don't get really sick. I just get really tired. I mean, especially when I have a bunch of other little toddlers I'm looking after. But the biggest thing, the difference with this pregnancy was I was so uncomfortable towards the end. And I was so over the pregnancy, which has never happened to me. I've always loved being pregnant up until the day I give birth. But I was so uncomfortable. I think baby just dropped down really low, really early, and was on my tailbone, may have been even slightly posterior. So like sitting too long or standing too long was really excruciating. I didn't like going anywhere. I was just kind of staying home towards the end because I was so uncomfortable. So I'm going to kind of go into talking about our birth plans and stuff, if that's all right. So we had our first 3, we didn't find out what we were having because that's always such a fun part for me too. I'm always the one that pulls baby up and announces what it is, which is so fun. So we didn't want to find out what we were having again. And we had 3 home water births. So they were all pretty much the same birth, same labor. Our previous 2, we had the same midwife even. So we wanted to hire her again because I really loved her. The difference this time is that we wanted to hire a sibling doula to watch the boys during the birth because I really like them there. I like having my kids there. My oldest has been there with every single birth. I love when they're there like immediately after, even in early labor. It's really fun. But during the actual birth part, I just really need to focus and get in the zone. And I don't like, they're always so chatty, like they don't know how to be quiet. So I like to just like be in the zone and have them out of the room for the actual part. So we hired a sibling doula to come and help with that. So.
Okay, so you were just reflecting on those first 3 births. You said you hired the same midwife for this birth. Do you want to kind of just talk about your pregnancy a little bit more, like towards the end?
Yeah, so we hired the same midwife, and towards the end, I was just really uncomfortable. Everything was good. The only difference in this pregnancy, my blood pressure got a little higher through the holidays. higher for me. I always have lower blood pressure. It got higher through the holidays, but as soon as the holidays were over, it went back to normal. So that was really weird.
Interesting.
Holiday stress got to me. So I was really uncomfortable. And what I would do is I would crawl on the floor a lot towards the end of the pregnancy because it would help work baby out of my tailbone.
Like just on your hands and knees?
Movement. Yeah, well, not even just the hands and knees. It was more like the movement of my legs would kind of like work baby out. So I did that a lot. And my kids thought that was really funny because I'm like so pregnant crawling around. But yeah, the pregnancy otherwise was pretty good.
Okay. And you were seeing the same midwife that you saw with all but your first?
Yeah, we had moved between. So that's why we ended up hiring her. She's our Minnesota one. But yeah, she's great. So yeah, we hired our same midwife and she's really great. She's like traditional. We do all our prenatals at home and she's just really hands off. But the biggest thing that I really love about her is she's really, really into informed consent and all of that, which is really important. So our birth ideals really lined up. We just absolutely love her. She was really amazing at the last 2 births. So there was no question about hiring her again.
Yeah, having a midwife that will come to your house when you have other kids already is so amazing. Yeah. We had the same situation when we lived kind of in rural Oregon. She would just drive up and down the coast and see all her clients. So it was nice.
Yeah, it's really good, especially after, too, if they'll come for the postpartum visit.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else from your pregnancy you want to share, or do you want to go ahead and talk about the birth?
We can go into how labor started. And it was the weekend that I was about 40 weeks pregnant. I was so achy and uncomfortable. So I would get these stronger pains that would feel like contractions, but I wasn't 100% sure. I would get these for a few nights in a row. It was really frustrating. I would start questioning, do I need to call my midwife? Is this something I need to notify her about? Is this real contraction? Is it labor? I would just tell myself, okay, I can go to bed because it was at nighttime. I'll go to bed, and if I wake up, if it's real labor, it's going to wake me up. They're going to get stronger. And I remember waking up a few hours later every single time and them being gone and them being nothing and just being so frustrated because I was so ready to get this started. A big thing too with this pregnancy is I was so confident and just ready to take on the birth from like the second I found out I was pregnant. I was confident and ready to do it. So I was ready to give birth by the end between the discomfort and just like mentally being prepared for it. So that was really frustrating. I had a lot of false starts that fizzled out and ended up being nothing. Another thing too is we really were hoping that I would go into labor in the middle of the night when all the kids were sleeping. People would tell me that like every single time I've had a baby, someone would tell me, oh, you'll probably have them in the middle of the night, but that's never happened. It's always been, I wake up in labor, I labor all day, and then I have the baby at night, like past their bedtime when they're still awake. So we were really hoping to have one when everybody was sleeping, but that did not happen. So on Monday, my husband went into work like normal. And I actually told him, because my previous 2 had been born on the weekend. So I just told him, we'll probably, maybe next weekend, the baby will come. So he went in on Monday and I was just really achy and uncomfortable. I was crawling around again on the floor. And then I was texting my husband and telling him I was so uncomfortable and how I was so afraid that I was going to have this labor just take off and I would be alone with 3 kids under 4 years old. So I was complaining to him about that. And I remember just texting him like, I don't know if this is a real contraction. I don't know if this is anything. And he was really concerned. He kept saying, well, do I need to come home? Do I need to come home? And I'm like, no, because this keeps happening. Ended up being nothing. So I don't want you to come home for nothing. And then I had a really strong one. I just remember going, oh, shoot, like maybe you better come home. Which I felt still kind of stupid because I didn't want him to, like, he had just started his work day. It was halfway through the day actually, but he had started the work day. I didn't want him to come home and then have it just be nothing and have him have to go back the next day and tell everyone that it was just like false alarm, but which is a kind of a stupid thing to stress about. So he came home. That was around 12:30. He called me actually, and he asked if he could stop for gas because his car was getting low, and he's about 40 minutes out. I told him, "You cannot stop for gas. I need you here. I need to make sure I'm not going to have a baby by myself." That was such a huge fear of mine with having so many little kids and like just this labor taking off. It was something I was really, really afraid of. So he called and he was coming home, and then I called my midwife and I just broke down, just crying to her. She didn't know that I had been having false contractions all weekend. So I was crying to her and telling her about that, how I keep having contractions and then it ends up being nothing. And I don't know. I don't want everyone to come if it's going to be nothing. And she just like calmly told me, you know, a lot of times when moms get really emotional like this, it means that you're in labor or labor's really near. So just keep me posted. So I just kept that in the back of my mind. She made me feel a lot better. But I did start going fill the birth pool then immediately. We use a birth pool. We have it in our bedroom. And then we hook up the hose to our shower and then fill it from there. So I started filling the pool because it can take hours. If you run out of hot water, then you got to stop and wait for the hot water to refill. So I was really stressed about that too, because I've never had a baby out of water. That's always been a huge relief for me to get in the pool, and then it just relaxes me and calms me down, and it feels so good when I'm in labor. So that was a huge fear of mine, that I wouldn't get the pool filled in time. So I immediately started doing that and just frantically like taking care of my kids and making them lunch. And I just remember like the anxiousness of it, like just trying to get everything ready and clean up the house. And my husband finally came home around 1:00, and then he jumped into it too, helping with getting the pool filled. But somewhere in there, I think I go to the bathroom a lot in labor because having empty bladder helps dull the contractions a little bit. So at some point, I flushed the toilet and it messed up something with the water pressure in the shower. The water wasn't coming out anymore. So my husband was standing there holding it. We were trying to rig something up to hold the lever up so the water would keep flowing. And so that was so frustrating. We kept trying to rig different things up and they weren't working. And my contractions started getting harder. And every time I'd have a contraction, my husband would have to come running over and do like hip compressions. And I'm freaking out at him about keep yelling that we need to get the pool filled. We need to get the pool filled. I need to get in the pool. And so I decided I better call my midwife because I knew this was real labor and I just really wanted her here. My contractions never get regular, which is something that can be kind of stressful, which is part of the reason I stress about having a baby without anybody there, because I can have contractions just spaced out a lot, but then they get harder really quickly and there's no consistency whatsoever. So I called her and told her she'd better come, and she kind of laughed and she said she was ready to go. So she jumped in the car. She was an hour out because we live kind of rural. So she comes from the cities. And so she was on her way, which was a relief, but things started picking up. I remember so much chaos, like my kids coming in the middle of a contraction. I'll be bending over and during a really hard contraction. And one of the boys will come in and be like, Mom, like wonder why I'm not answering them. I'm like, honey, I'm doing something really hard. Can you just stay out right now? So we ended up turning on the TV. It was like, both annoying and like comical because, oh my goodness, I just have no idea.
Oblivious. Yeah.
So my husband called my doula, which there was a misunderstanding. I had been texting her earlier and I thought she said she could be here in an hour, but that was completely false. She didn't say anything about a time frame of when she could be here. I don't know how I misconstrued this. So she told us that she was over an hour away. She said she could leave in half an hour. So my husband told me that and I looked at him and said, well, she's not going to be here. Like there's no way she's going to make it before the baby does. So we set the TV up for the boys and I started feeling baby get lower and lower. I just know the feeling now after I had 3 births. So I know where baby is. And I felt baby like bump against my cervix where I felt like I was going to start feeling pushy. And I freaked out. I just like was bending over, screaming to my husband, just telling him, you're going to have to do this. The midwife's not going to make it. You're going to have to do this. And he's over in the other room trying to get the shower and the pool filled because I was freaking out at him about getting in the water. And it was just so much chaos. And so I thought, I need to do something. My midwife is still 45 minutes away. This baby is coming so fast. So I made a nest for myself of pillows on the bed and I climbed up and I hypnobirthed with my first. So I know a lot of the hypnobirthing. So I did the full body relaxation where I just calmed my body down. It was so relaxed. And I slowed the contractions down, thankfully. So they started spacing out to more like 7 to 10 minutes, maybe. That was a relief, but I still kept watching the clock, just counting down the minutes until my midwife was there. I kept telling myself, okay, I just need to hang in there for 30 more minutes. I need to keep this baby in for 10 more minutes. Around, I think 3:00, she finally burst through the door. I've never been so relieved to see someone in my life, I don't think. So I was just like, okay, my midwife is here. I can do this. It's going to be okay. She checked on me and she checked on the baby. But then I started telling her, I need to get in the water. I have to get in the pool. I cannot do this out of the water. So she jumped in. They were boiling water to get the water up to the right temperature. Since they had used cold water, now we ran out of hot water. So they boiled water to fill up the pool to the right temperature. And she finally told me, you can get in if you want. There's enough water that it'll be safe and fine. So I got in, and almost immediately I just felt like, this is not comfortable. I don't like this. But I kind of like awkwardly floated around for a few contractions in there. But the water wasn't as deep as it normally was, so I was a little bit chilly, and I just could not ground myself, which is what a lot of people talk about during water birth, which I've never had a problem with. But I just felt really awkward. So I went through transition in there because I remember leaning over the tub and just telling my midwife, I cannot push this baby out. I cannot do it. And just that feeling where you wish you could just get out of your body. So she always tells me, but pushing is the shortest phase, and then baby will be here. So I was like, okay, I can do this. But then I told her, I don't want to be in the pool anymore. I want to get out. She said, you can get out, but if you get out, you're probably not going to be able to get back in. Because she knew I was getting really close and how much I had stressed to her about how I wanted a water birth. So I told her, I know, but this does not feel right. So they ended up situating me on the bed, putting towels down and stuff for me. I climbed up on the bed, and shortly after, my water broke, which is a really weird feeling. My labors have all been so textbook, where my water will break right before baby comes out. So my water was always broken in the pool, which you can't really feel that much. It's like a warm rush. But this time it was everywhere. So that was kind of funny. And we had just got a brand new mattress. So I was like, oh my goodness, our mattress. They soaked it up, and it ended up being fine. So immediately after, I started feeling like I was not going to be able to resist the urge to push anymore. So I went with the urge to push, and then it ebbed away. That contraction ebbed away. And then my husband ran out of the room because he heard someone come in our front door, and the sibling doula was here. So he greeted her, but almost before he even got back in the room, the next contraction was coming, really, really pushy. So I just roared with it. I grabbed onto his hand as he came into the room and leaned into his chest and just roared that baby until I felt their head emerge. And then there was like a moment of confusion for me because I always push their head out. And then when their head's out, it's really easy to just push the rest of their body out. So I kind of like stopped a little bit, and my midwife told me, you need to keep pushing. You need to get their body out. So I was really frustrated, and I just used that frustration to just push the baby out the rest of the way. And the room was just filled with screaming of a new baby, which was so amazing. It's like the best feeling when they come out screaming, just, I'm here, we did it, it's over. You know they're fine. And so the cord was really short though, so I had to keep baby like really down low between my legs. I couldn't lift baby up to my chest. So I was holding baby, and then I turned over and just screamed, it's a girl! Oh my gosh, it's a girl! So that was just like the most amazing thing. There was a little surprise girl. It was so exciting. So she was healthy and really chubby, which was why it was harder to push her out. The cord was really short though, so as soon as it stopped pulsing, my midwife cut it. The rest of it was kind of just like a flurry blur. At some point, she thinks I might have pulled on the cord with a placenta, so she gave me a shot of Pitocin because she was concerned about the bleeding. And then everything else was just such a blur. I remember breastfeeding. I remember an hour or so later getting to take a shower, and it just feels so good. And then crawling back into my own bed and eating pizza and snuggling our baby. And so from start to finish, though, it was like just under 3.5 hours. So it was just such a flurry. And I wish I had known how easy it would be to give birth on land, because it wasn't any harder to me than in the water. So that was kind of funny because it was such a fear of mine to not have the pool. And then it ended up, after I told my husband, I don't think I ever want to use the pool again because this wasn't bad at all. I feel like you get to use gravity more. So yeah, it was just such an amazing experience though.
Yeah, it's so interesting after 3 water births to then be like, wait, maybe I'm not a water birth person.
Yeah, exactly.
But it could just be that labor too. Yeah. It seems like it was going really fast there at the end.
Yeah, and that's what my midwife used. She told me, you may have had some kind of intuition to not be in the water just because her cord was so short. I would have had to stand up in the water to get her up. So she said that was a good thing, that may have just been something that I had a feeling about. So.
Yeah. So then how was like the immediate postpartum time? Were you glad you had that sibling doula there at that point, or what did that look like for you?
That was actually funny because she was there and then the boys were not interested in the baby at all. She like had slime and cars and they were out playing. They came in, they kind of
who's this like entertainer?
Yeah. So I was like yelling to them, you guys, you have a sister, you have a sister. They came wandering in. They're just kind of like, just walk back out.
Back to the slime.
It was funny, but it was nice. She stayed for a few hours then so we could get baby all checked out and everything cleaned up. I don't even know what it's really funny because it's always a blur. Like I'm so focused on baby and myself and breastfeeding that somehow my midwife and my husband end up like clearing out the pool and cleaning up and doing all the stuff. And I don't even notice it. It's like a magic show. You like look up, the room is back to normal. So that's always kind of funny how like out of tune I am with all of that. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I always tell people when like, for some people, that's like their one concern about home birth is the mess. And I'm like, honestly, it's never been an issue. It just, that's part of the package. They take care of it for you.
Midwives are amazing with that. The other thing though it was really weird because she was born at just before 4:00 in the afternoon. We've only ever had a baby like really late at night, like 10 or 11. So we normally just like get ready for bed and go to bed. So it was really weird having it still be daylight out and we're like, oh, okay, we're just going to hang out for a while. It was just really a weird thing for it to be. It just felt so different from the other ones when it was a different time of day.
All right. So then how was like longer term recovery for you? Anything you want to share about postpartum, breastfeeding, having a baby with older kiddos? Anything to share? The
immediate postpartum was so rough. It was my hardest birth recovery for sure. I was so uncomfortable during the end of my pregnancy that I figured, once the baby comes, it will be over and I'll be comfortable again. But that was not the case. My hips, my tailbone, everything was still so uncomfortable. The after pains were so, so rough. And I was just achy and uncomfortable. The birth was so fast too that it was really a lot for me to process mentally. I remember almost a week probably. I could not like settle down to go to sleep at night because my mind would just be like thinking about the birth. Like it was just really a lot to process when it went so fast. Normally my births have been like really relaxing. I have all day to prepare for it, but this time was such like a flurry and rush and chaos that it was a lot to wrap my head around. I was just so uncomfortable and achy though too that I actually ended up getting mastitis after my milk came in. And I didn't even know I had mastitis because I was just so uncomfortable already. It was like that night I took my temperature and I had a fever. And I was like, oh, that's what that lump in my breast is from. I was just so achy that I didn't even know. Thankfully that cleared up. And then the next day I felt like a whole new person. So I'm almost wondering if that had like picked up. I had gotten that sooner than I had thought, but I was just so uncomfortable I didn't even notice. So it actually ended up being like a really big blessing for us because she was born right at the beginning of March and my husband was home for 2 weeks and then he went to work for I think a day or two and then the lockdown started. And so he ended up working from home for the first probably 6 months or so. So that was actually a really huge blessing for us because transitioning to 4 kids was a lot easier with my husband around a lot of the time. So that was really, really nice to have that as rough as it was, it ended up being a blessing for us.
Yeah, I think that I've thought about that a lot with families during this time it's so much about this that's been hard, but the time together, even though working from home with 4 children is not easy. It's nice to know they're there, especially with a brand new baby in case they need to, pop in and help out.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing was he was working, obviously. So he was like shut up in the room working, but he was around for like meals and lunches. So I was tied up breastfeeding a baby or holding a newborn and he could come in and make all the lunches and meals. So that was huge because that's half of taking care of a kid. So yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah. And for a lot of my friends that live outside of Austin, like not having to worry about the commute aspect just gives their partner so much more time with the kids too.
Yeah, definitely. Because you would be off at 4:30 instead of having to drive 45 minutes home. So, I mean, sometimes he'd be done even sooner because he could just have his phone with him if anybody needed him for anything, but still be around for us. So,
yeah. All right. So do you have any resources you want to share over the course of, any of your births, really?
Yeah, so my favorite is Evidence-Based Birth. I think they're absolutely amazing in everything that they do. Honestly, anything, no matter what kind of birth you have, I think it's really important to research every aspect and even know. A lot of people don't know going in what to expect. So they're a great resource. I love Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. I read that with my first. Even the birth stories in that are really nice. It's always nice to listen to birth stories like your podcast and just kind of prepare and know for everything that could happen. And then I loved hypnobirthing. I did the Marie Mongan method with my first. And it's just something that helped a lot with my anxiety because I do have a little bit of anxiety. So doing the hypnobirthing, it really helped me stay in, focused on what you can control and just relax. So I loved that.
Yeah, those are all really great ones and classics, I feel like, at this point.
Definitely.
All right. Well, do you want to share where people can connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram my shop one is the main page that I use now is at Modern Botanical Co. And I also do occasionally, not so much anymore, but sometimes talk about cloth diapers. I have actually a lot of cloth diaper resources there. So if you're interested, at Modern Bottom Babies. So those are my two main public accounts.
Okay, cool. We'll put those on the show notes too. And thank you so much for sharing today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Now we're going to hear more about Aeroflow breast pumps, today's sponsor. Don't forget to head over to aeroflowbreastpumps.com/birth-hour to get your free pump through insurance. Aeroflow has been a longtime sponsor of the Birth Hour, and I've never heard anything but amazing reviews of their service. So the way that it works is you just go to their website and you fill out a really easy form, and then they will contact your insurance as well as your care provider, to get proof that you're pregnant and then to find out what your insurance covers as far as breast pumps. And then within sometimes hours, maybe a day or two, you'll get information from Aeroflow, a link to click, and you'll see all of your options. All of the major brands of pumps out there are available, and you could sometimes upgrade if you want maybe a, rechargeable one, or you want one with a really cute bag because you're going to be carrying it to work every day. All different options that are either free or an upgrade. It's totally up to you, which is really cool because a lot of insurance companies, if you contact them directly, they might have a couple options. So Aeroflow has really just condensed everything into one spot and made it really easy, which is nice. I also feel like they just can cut to the chase with your insurance company because they know exactly what they're doing. It's kind of like, dealing with your car insurance. If you have a lawyer, you're going to get things done a lot faster. So Aeroflow can act as your go-between, and it's completely a free service to you, which is awesome. I also wanted to mention they have a couple extra things now that I didn't know about when I used Aeroflow to get my breast pump for free through insurance, and those are their compression garments. So they have compression socks, which a lot of people end up needing during pregnancy. I wore them on an airplane when I was flying to Hawaii, and it was a long flight during my pregnancy. And then they have maternity compression bands to help support your belly during pregnancy. And a lot of insurance companies cover these products as well, which is really cool. I would have had no idea. I don't think insurance companies are broadcasting this information, but if you get in touch with Aeroflow, they can figure out whether that's something that is available to you or not. There's also postpartum compression garments as well. And you can always buy these things through their site too, even if your insurance doesn't cover them. The other really neat feature of Aeroflow is the services they provide once your baby arrives, in the form of sending you, restocking your breast pump supplies, like the bottles and the valves and the tubing and all these things that actually need to be replaced pretty frequently if you're pumping every single day. They will send you a reminder and be like, hey, you qualify for free replacement parts, and we're sending them out to you. I don't think I even had to say yes, please, or check a box. I think they just sent them to me, which is really amazing. And that's another free service that your insurance covers, but you may not know about if you didn't have somebody advocating on your behalf the way that Aeroflow breast pumps does. So if you're pregnant currently, you can go ahead and do the form whenever you want. Go to aeroflowbreastpumps.com/birth-hour. Remember, it's totally free and it's an easy form. You can do that whenever you want in your pregnancy, and then depending on your insurance company, they may want you to, wait until a certain 36 weeks, I think was mine, until they'll ship the pump, but I was able to make all the decisions ahead of time, and then it just shipped when I reached that point in my pregnancy, and Aeroflow kept track of all of that for me, which is awesome. Other companies might allow it to ship a little bit sooner. You can also fill it out even if you've already had your baby. I believe when I talked to Aeroflow, they said for most insurance companies, it's within the first year. That might vary depending on your insurance. But again, that's something that they will figure out for you. So if you haven't used Aeroflow yet and you want to get your pump for free through insurance, let's take advantage of our insurance plans that we have. Go over to aeroflowbreastpumps.com/birthhour and they will get you all set up. Thank you so much again to Kaitlin for sharing her story with us and to Aeroflow for sponsoring this episode. If you need a breast pump, you can head over to aeroflowbreastpumps.com/birthhour and get that taken care of. I'll also link to it from today's show notes page, which you can find by going to thebirthhour.com and searching for Kaitlin's name in the search bar. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.